En julio del 2019, un grupo de entidades no físicas conocidas como Vagrein empezaron a canalizar información a través de ella. Ella es madre, coach de vida, sanadora de energía pránica para personas y sus mascotas, escritora y canal de este grupo de consciencia de entidades no físicas. Junto a Vagrein ha escrito 2 libros y ella ama transmitir sus mensajes y su sabiduría que elevan la vibración y la conciencia de la gente, de todo aquel que le oye. Hoy estará aquí con nosotros Jessie Herman y quédate para esta entrevista que realmente te va a mover por dentro. Okay, this is MindSherpa. I am Carlos Lavado, host and one of the creators of this School of Awakening and Consciousness movement at the same time. Our guest today is an expert in guiding people in many difficult aspects, such as moving home, living in foreign countries, quitting their job, striving for enlightenment, navigating psychic gifts, miscarriage, legal issues, chronic illness, childhood trauma, and so on. She's also a writer, but above all, she's a channel for a non-physical entity group known as Vagrein. Jessie Herman, welcome to MindSherpa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk with you and all of your friends today.
Thank you, Jessie. I told you in private, but I would like to express in public my gratitude and appreciation to be here. So I'll be recording. Thank you so much for being here.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
My first question is, many people in Latin American countries, Spain, don't know you too much. So can you briefly explain who Jessie Herman is?
Sure. I'm just a regular person, just like all of you, who happens to have had experiences in my life who've led me to ask deeper questions. Why are we here? Why do we exist? What's life about? What's the purpose? And I know many of you have those questions as well. Okay. And through my own seeking for those answers, I uncovered more and more of myself. And in uncovering myself, uncovered also abilities to access extrasensory perception, which I had put on the back burner since childhood. You know, everyone tells you to stop using your imagination so much, to stop, seeing things or feeling things that are not, documentable. And through my process of coming into spirituality, through meditation, through listening and being guided by other teachers, I discovered my ability to channel the non-physical entity group Vagrein, which is what we're going to be talking about today, as well as working as an intuitive life or directional coach and as an energy healer. So that is the general package. On the human side, I'm also a mom. I'm also a business person, working to bring more and more of these messages to you, to humanity. And on the spiritual side, I'm a little bit of a mystic. So that's sort of the recap and the general gist of who I am.
Oh, it's awesome. When this path started, the feeling to something is coming, something is, start to floating up, something. When do you remember when did it started?
Yes, it's actually almost 4 years to the date. Next week is going to be the 4-year anniversary of my channeling coming through. But I expect that the sensation and the desire, or not even the desire, but the calling to do this kind of work appeared several years earlier. And I had a lot of resistance to it. I didn't want to be a channel. I didn't want to be a mystic. I didn't want to be weird. And after a while of having and holding resistance, in the same way that if you put a lot of junk in a river, eventually the water is going to break through and just tear the whole thing apart. On my 40th birthday, I decided to see what would happen if I let the guard down and stopped the resistance to this messaging coming through me. And And from that moment forward, I've been channeling in full trance this specific energy or bandwidth frequency of what can be considered universal consciousness or infinite intelligence. And the messages that come through Vagrein are generally very aligned with unity consciousness is their main message. So I feel like that's a valuable thing to be bringing to humanity to help us to understand that we're not separate. And so I really didn't have a choice once that dam broke, because the water's been flowing ever since.
We can speak about Vagrein. Who Vagrein is, or how can explain people who is Vagrein?
So Vagrein is just the name. So when this universal consciousness came through, people started asking the usual questions of like, who are you? What are you? Where are you from? And to make things easier, they allowed us as a group, us as humanity, to give them a name or to accept a name. And actually the story behind the name is really interesting, because when the name was proposed to me, and I only ever saw it, it was like a visualization of the letters. When I searched for it online, as you do, because of course that's the first thing you're going to do. Who is this group, right?
Exactly.
The only information about the name was the statement, "Seeking ends when sharing begins." And so I took that as a personal message that my own personal seeking could only be realized by stepping into the gifts that I have, or not even the gifts, but my own true essence, and beginning to share that with others. You know, whether that means the channeling, or that means just being really honest about who I am and my own struggles and challenges. So that's where the name came from. Vagrein as an energy itself is non-local, non-physical, and non-material. So they don't actually exist in the way that we perceive of existence, and they are not individuated in the way that we perceive of individuation. So they've explained in the past that the only time that they exist is when I'm channeling in that specific form. So the only time they have personality or energy to transmit with us in that particular way is when I'm channeling. And the rest of the time, they are the energy of all that is. So they're you, they're me, they're everyone. They're a flower, they're a rock, they're every concept and idea that we can't even imagine. So the channeling of it is the filtering it down into one specific type of delivery, but outside of that, they encompass everythingness. So it's a bit of a conceptual gymnastics, but the less we associate these messages with coming from a specific separate source and more with coming from just the isness that we already are, the better absorbed the messages are.
Obviously, Vagrein chose you for a reason. There is no chance on this. You know what reason is? You have any idea?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you know, it's not chance on this, so it has to be a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I have some suspicion. You know, there's definitely an ease in my letting go of identification with channeling. So I think that's one of the keys, that I don't really, you know, I can go in and out of trance and nothing sticks. So I don't think that I'm more important because I channel. I don't think that I know more than other people because I have very much this is just a role that I have that serves this higher whatever it is, right? So it's like a job that I have. I think that at some point they did mention that there are some, you know, genetic or physical factors that make up the ability to have more access to channeling as opposed to running marathons. You know, I can't run a marathon. I know that is based on certain genetic factors. You know, you have to have certain genetic factors to be able to build muscle and endurance and energy if you want to run a marathon. And I think there are probably some other factors that allow someone to have access to whatever part of the brain allows through channeled material. So that's another aspect that might be related to why they chose me. And I think also it is a soul contract that you make before you're incarnate. So at some point, I must have signed up for this particular experience and agreed to participate in it in this way. And then again, when that calling came in my life in the right and perfect moment, have then agreed to fulfill that previously organized or, previously or simultaneously organized contract. So I really believe anyone can channel. And I also believe that we're all channeling all the time, except that the only thing we're channeling is our own personalities the majority of the time. And then other moments of the day, maybe if you're a painter or you're a composer or something, yes, you're channeling more of that universal consciousness. But the majority of the time, we're kind of channeling the same thing that we've channeled every day since we were born.
Exactly. A channel like you is born or made? What do you think?
Sorry?
I mean, a channel like you is born or made? I mean, you're more with all these potentials, or maybe you need to learn to do that, or something.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's got to be a combination, in the same way that anything that we are is both predetermined and also created through our choices. I don't think that I would be a channel if I hadn't had certain very potent struggles earlier in my life. I don't think I would be a channel if I hadn't had the childhood I had. I don't think I would be a channel if I hadn't had some of what could be considered tragedies that had occurred that led me to my spiritual seeking and to an opening to something beyond the material world. So that's definitely the made part. And then the born part is, not everyone will go down the same routes. And that is a lot determined on, who you are when you start out. So there's definitely both. But it's the same, like, is an accountant born or made, or is a grocery clerk born or made? It's a combination. And I don't think that there are any restrictions if someone does want to pursue a certain direction in their life. I think that no matter how you're born, you can make yourself into whatever you want to make yourself into.
And in your journey, did you pass through the dark soul of the dark night of your soul?
That's an interesting topic, because that dark night of the soul is very conceptual.
Okay.
I feel that sometimes concepts or descriptions of things are created to try to ease experiences that people have, and then sometimes get adopted and actually cause more trouble than they started out with. So I don't like to identify specific periods with a dark night of the soul, because I don't know if it serves to do that. But I will say that I have had many experiences that have brought me to my knees and given me the choice in each of those challenges, whether or not I'm going to get up with the scraped knees and brush myself off and dust myself off and sort of keep going and journey forward through that catalyst and through that experience of, here's your next challenge, or whether I'm going to go, you know what, this is too hard. Life sucks. I'm going to become bitter and closed off to living and humanity and of course, spirituality as well. There are so many challenges that will bring you to the question, what is this for? There are so many challenges that will bring you to the question, is there something else that really is looking out for me on my side, or am I completely alone in this universe? And each time you face that gateway, that could be considered, yes, a dark night of the soul, because it's extremely painful to go through that alchemy and that crucible of burning off what's no longer needed. But then when you come through, to use the same metaphor, you are forged into something that is much stronger and much more able to be here with all the intentions you came into this world with. So the answer is yes. Yes. And I don't know if it serves for me to identify it as exclusively a spiritual experience rather than that complete collection of human experiencing.
Interesting. I'm not gonna ask you about your diet. I think it's a common question. But what about your thought diet? I mean, how you manage your daily thoughts about the daily problems we have.
Sure.
That monkey voice is big problem for many people.
Absolutely.
So how you manage that and affect that voice, that thoughts to you channeling?
It's a great question. Because I know earlier in my spiritual journey, I did try to wrestle that monkey mind to the ground and stop it and clear it out. And I spent hours in meditation on a daily basis and really trying to get it to stop, right?
Exactly.
And to be that enlightened being and to be beyond the thoughts and beyond the pettiness of everyday life and not be triggered. But how do you become trigger free? And I really went through that whole journey of attempting to eradicate the ego or to all the things that, come up in the spiritual journey that you're told like is important to do. And then at a certain point, there was a softening, a very deep softening to an acceptance of that ego, an acceptance of that monkey mind and of that experience of being human and having these, wild ideas that come up that are not serving, and then packing on more trauma and then unpacking more trauma. And, the experience of like going through your day and being almost like an accordion, right? One moment you feel godly and the next moment you feel like, you're the scum of the earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I came to peace with it. Is basically my answer. And the way I manage it now is when thoughts come up that are not serving, I might not recognize them right away, but as soon as I do, I step into compassion. That's the first step. The first step is to be very compassionate with myself and understand that these thoughts are arising for many different reasons. They're arising from beliefs that don't serve me, from communication I had maybe when I was a child with caregivers that implanted beliefs in my head. They come from being in a collective that isn't really healthy right now. They come from so many different sources. And each of those sources has created in my system thoughts that don't align with who I truly am. And that is a painful experience, to have thoughts that don't align with what you truly are, because that's where negative emotions do come from. So you have a thought like, let's say, it's a classic, I'm not good enough, right? And
it's a classic, right? Yeah.
And you feel the pain of that. You really believe it. And then you're like, everything's awful, right? So my first reaction to a thought like that and to the emotion that comes with it is, it's okay. It's okay to feel like you're not good enough. It's understandable that you feel this way because you've been living in an experience that has taught you to feel this way. Then I would step to gratitude for the thought, because that thought at some point in my life was serving me, right? Believing I wasn't good enough might have been what I needed to do to have a peaceful interaction with my father, for example, or believing I wasn't good enough was the way to get through school because then I didn't have to, prove myself, or whatever the reason was. At some point, that thought was definitely serving me. So then I step from compassion for myself to gratitude for the thought itself. Then I will try to unpack, not necessarily where it came from, but does this serve me? And what's the opposite of this thought? Can I step into imagining myself believing the opposite? I am good enough, right? When I believe I'm good enough and I practice with that, how do I feel? Does that feel better? And if it does feel better, do I want to choose to feel that way instead of the other way that isn't serving me anymore? Because I don't need to protect myself in that way any longer. And then coming through to the end of that, I acknowledge that even if I've done all that work, it's going to come up as many times as it needs to before it leaves my system with intention. And that is really how I get through the day. And it's, you'll have themes, you'll have repetitive things that come up regularly that belong to your theme. And each time you have compassion, gratitude, a little bit of analysis, and then acceptance that it's not going to be cleared immediately, you get further and further away from that belief. And therefore, those things eventually they're not needed to come up anymore because they don't need to show you the thing anymore because you don't believe that thing anymore. So it's really a process, and accepting that it's going to be a process as opposed to trying to jump out of the discomfort, that was my meditation practice, was trying to get away from the thoughts. But now I meet them and find out what they want to gift to me, really.
Okay. According with your answer, do you lose your temper often? I mean, I think no.
Yeah, okay.
It's curious.
I do. I have 2 kids,
really?
They don't
as a mother, I understand that. Yeah.
I absolutely do. And then, it's the same process. You lose your temper. Maybe you act in a way that doesn't feel in alignment. You forgive yourself, you apologize, you remedy with the other person, and then you go through that process of having compassion. Why did I lose my temper? And the answer is never because I'm not, because there's something wrong with me. That's never the answer. I promise all of you that if you're going into the why question and your solution is because I'm broken or because there's something wrong with me, that's not the direction. Okay. The why is based upon often because you were trying to take care of yourself in some way, right? So I know, like with my kids, with like keeping the house clean, it's because I have an expectation of keeping the house clean because I was trained that, right? And because I'm holding on to a sense of like, if it's not clean, that means X, Y, and Z, right? So I get angry with them because I feel threatened when the house is out of order. I mean, that's a crazy thing to then cause conflict in my relationship with them. But again, I have a lot of compassion for myself because that takes an unlearning. And I'm in the process, just like anybody else.
This topic connect me with your book. I recommended, by the way, your book to all the viewers. That is the book. Yeah. Page 89. The next generation.
Yes.
I'm gonna just read phrase. I said, these childs are not like these childs are not like the ones that came before. You as a mother, how are you raising up your child in a highly high conscience? Because you are getting information for Vagrein.
Yeah.
So maybe you are more wise or prepared to manage. Well, I think so. To manage your child in not the normal way that the society or all the people do. So how are you raising your child? It's really
but
curious.
Also the parents are different, or many of the parents at least, in that. Sorry. Yeah. So I feel like this generation of parenting is very self-aware. And we're aware of our own childhood trauma and conditioning. And it seems to be a generation that wants to stop familiar patterns, right? So when we come upon things in ourselves that are wounds, instead of directly delivering them to our children, we're aware of them first. Therefore, we have the ability to choose how to then heal ourselves during the parenting process. So the difference between this particular generation and perhaps like my parents' generation is there is the concept of reparenting yourself, right? So I don't really see myself as only responsible for the healing, like the healing of this generational trauma and the parenting of my children, but also the healing of my own inner work. And I'm not transmitting to my kids, a lot of Vagrein messages on a regular basis. I do my best, like anyone. And I definitely see them as individuals with a very deep soul connection to me. So they're as much my teachers as I am their teacher. And it's a flow and a learning back and forth. So it has its complications, as any parenting journey does. And again, in my parenting, I'm compassionate because, hey, I've never done this before. No one teaches you how to be a parent, right? Yeah. So I make my mistakes and then I remedy them. So a lot of the work is the follow.
Hello.
There wasn't as much of this taking responsibility for your part in raising the child as there is now. The other thing is that these kids, they know way more than us. They're here on a different spiritual level than we are. And they're here for a different phase of the evolution than we are. So having a bit of humility in confrontation with your children and knowing, like, for example, if you have a what is called like a difficult child, right? Classically, they'd say like the kid that says no all the time is a difficult child, right? Yeah. Instead, we are now able to see these beings as, oh, this person has come into this world with a huge sense of self and their own boundaries. And they're not even going to let me, their parents, dictate what they take on. So they're not a difficult child. They're a wise being. They're a self-sourced being. They're a sovereign being. And maybe they're, in my experience, to teach me also to have this same energy. So it's really a very interesting dynamic now with the kids. And my advice to any parent would be like, your first job is just to make sure that they don't hurt themselves because they're always trying to, and to do your best to love them, but also super importantly, to love yourself, because that's also what they're teaching us.
Thank you for sharing with us on your experience about this topic.
Yeah.
I heard in a previous video, you said channeling energized you, but you think the time slow down as well? I mean, stop aging while you are channeling? Because I heard in another channel, he said, while I'm channeling, I stop aging. So I don't know. It's really, I'm so curious about this question.
Well, that would be amazing. And
of course, yes.
Save me money on creams and,
exactly.
and supplements.
Yeah.
It really feels, okay, so on a physical level, it feels extremely, extremely relaxing, like, you know, like having a wonderful massage or being in a state of, you know, like, I don't know if you've ever been in a flotation tank, you know, an extra, like a non-sensory tank, flotation type of experience. It's like that. It's also like napping, but not quite the same. And I guess we'll find out in like 20 or so years if I still look like this. If the aging thing is true. But you know what? I do feel like, and I know this isn't the case for many channels, because there has been a history also of channels having, you know, a lot of health problems. And I'm no exception to that. One of my main themes is health. So I don't think it's because of the channeling, but I think that maybe, like we were talking about earlier, the genetic predisposition to channeling might also include a sensitivity to environment in general. And the taking on of collective trauma in that way, in the form of being physical, because you do have this like ability to be both physical and non-physical. So I feel super energized and super wonderful when I channel, but I also don't feel very grounded. So I do have to reground myself. You know, like I feel spacey, right? So I come back to human experience by having something to eat, or by, you know, doing some physical activity, or just kind of getting back in my body. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the aging thing was accurate, because there's so much energy that comes through the system.
Okay. There are many topics to talk about, but we have just short time.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we connect with Vagrein and we can ask some questions?
Sure, sure. That would be great.
Would be great, yeah.
It takes me a few minutes to get into trance, so I will start heading towards the trance state now. And then Vagrein will just join us. I'm actually going to take this necklace off because it feels a little heavy.
Okay.
And then I'll go into trance. Good now to you. We are pleased to be meeting with you in this fashion and grateful to you for the opportunity to interact and communicate with more of the beings whom would have interest in our messaging.
Now to you, Vagrein. Thank you so much for allowing me to enter your energy field. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
My first question is, what life is?
Please repeat.
My first question is, what life is?
What life is?
Yes.
Life is your choice to temporarily separate from the all that is, or perceive yourself as separate from the all that is, to have experience, to have the experience of individuation in order to have that excitement, have that delight, have that storyline, use your creativity to be able to experience something that as isness itself, you are not able to individuate at this particular level. That is the definition in theory of the individuated human life. Life as energy is the vibration of frequency in particular patterns, in particular octaves or bandwidths that create then the ability of matter to evolve through what you perceive of as time. In other words, it is very slow, the evolution of a rock from one form to another, and yet a plant is slightly faster in its particular evolution, and animal life then equally faster, and ultimately on your particular planet, human life with its evolution. Then there are, of course, your bacteria and all of your microorganisms who too have life within them and are also in their state of evolution through what can seem to be a short period of time. This is all related to the timelines that you each are wanting to create for yourself and in collaboration with one another.
Mm-hmm. Is your concept of life the same concept as ours?
Concept of light?
Life. Is the same, yeah. Is the
we
same
do not have
ours?
a life specifically. We would say that consciousness is isness. Consciousness is the building block of all that is. What you perceive of as your consciousness is also permeated with what could be called as awareness, in that in your awareness of consciousness, you are aware. And then there are those who are not aware. But consciousness itself is connected in all that is, in that in each fingernail has consciousness. Each plank of your floorboards has consciousness, and more so the entire floor has consciousness, and more so the entire house, for example. And life, from the level we present from, is not something that exists, because we are beyond that linear timeline, or not beyond, but exempt or outside of the expression of what you consider time. Therefore, it is simultaneously, if you would like to consider time and speed, infinitely fast and at a complete standstill. So life for us, if there were what could be considered life, is simply existence, or even the lack thereof. We know this is conceptual and hard to grasp from a human level, because you are so intrinsically connected with your perception of time and location. You are constrained by your perception of time and location. But if you could, for a moment, pause that belief that time and location are actual or real, then you could, in some ways, sense what we are presenting to you by narrowing down your perception outside of memory and projection into this now moment. if you could understand that all that exists is this now moment, you would then have a perception of something similar to the way in which we exist.
So, what is reality?
Reality simultaneously does not exist and is whatever you choose for it to be. This is why we advise at all times to be very astute in your choosing of what you believe, because anything that you believe, both on this plane and thereafter, are what becomes your reality. When you believe yourself to be wise, you are wisdom. When you believe yourself to be ill, you have illness. When you believe yourself to have any form of abundance in life, that is what presents to you. And reality is always only offerings to what you choose to crystallize or materialize in your experience. Therefore, that experience you are swimming through, where each day you are proposed with all form of information, all form of suggestion as to what is real and what is not, is in each moment your choice. So, for example, if you have heard on the news that there is some sort of problem that affects you directly, for example, some form of financial problem, a crash of your markets, for example, and you choose to believe that this is the case, because of course reality has proposed this to you, then you will make choices in your life as if that information were real. If you choose that it is not the case, which, yes, we understand is difficult to do, because it does mean going in the face of that offer and saying, no, thank you, I do not choose to have this offering in my experience. You will then choose your life according to not believing that is real. And in your choosing according to not believing that is real, yes, you may have some challenges that present themselves to ask you, on more than one occasion, are you sure that this offering is not for you? Are you sure that you do not want to take this amount of doubt and adopt it as your own? And the reason why humans are so successful at choosing the reality that they do not prefer is because they have believed for many eons that that is the reality that will protect them from some fate, some disaster. For example, those of you who do choose to believe in the next crisis, those of you who do choose to believe in the next threat, yes, may take action to protect yourself from it. But in that same taking of action to protect yourself from it, you are saying to the universe, I accept this proposal. I accept this threat as something that could harm me. That is not in my favor. That is out to get me. And in that accepting of that threat and protecting yourself from it, you are in that moment choosing separation again. If, however, when reality proposes to you something that you do not prefer, you say to it, no, thank you. I understand that even if this, quote, threat arrives at my doorstep, that it will be in my best interest, ultimately. Then you are saying to the universe, I recognize you and every game that you are playing with me as an opportunity for my desired evolution, as an opportunity for my desired growth, as an opportunity for me to achieve more of the being that I have chosen to come into this existence to achieve. The character arc that I have put into play can only be realized by facing this particular dragon and making it my friend. So if you are of the mind that reality is something that you have to combat against, that is a valid choice. If that is the life that you want to be living, because reality, what you are calling reality, or what has been called reality, will constantly propose to you adversaries with which to battle. In that, you are here to become the hero of your story. You are here to become the lead character in your play. And without the challenges, the villains, and the complications, you would not have the opportunity to rise to the occasion. So reality can be whatever you choose for it to be, and will constantly be offering to you opportunities to make that choice. Does this make sense?
Thank you so much. Great answer.
Thank you.
That's connect me with the next question. So, are we really living in a simulation? Some kind of simulation?
in many ways, it can be defined as that. Except that at times when you are talking about this particular concept as a collective, you are also in many ways assuming that the simulation has been created externally to you, in that some of your science fiction films or concepts that are being proposed to you even now are that some external being or group or vision has created something that you as your consciousness and individuation are constrained to or obligated to or forced into for some reason. However, the simulation, if it were, can be better described as a simulation that has been created by you, and that you have created all of the storylines, all of the levels, all of the gameplay, all of the adversaries, all of the blessings, all of the miracles, all of the beauty, all of the disaster, all of the heroes, all of the villains. You have created all of it. And why? For your own pleasure, for your own growth, for your own ability to see what this particular character that you too have created will do at each turn. You are writing the book or the story or the program at the same time as you are playing it as the individuated character. And if you were to think of your higher self or your oversoul or ultimately all that is, you can imagine that each of these particulars have in their own turn created a simulation for the one below, if you would like to consider hierarchy, to experience. So yes, your higher self has perhaps created the simulation of your direct individuation, and your oversoul has created the simulation of the beings with whom you have direct contact, as well as all of theirs. And then above that would be another simulation within which those live. And this goes on for infinity. It goes on until, and this is where the concept of the all that is comes from, or from where one can begin to understand it, until there is no separation between anything, because it is so infinite that to perceive of it, it would be impossible to separate any of the parts. You yourself as a human being in this life are in the process of creating the simulation you are in, because your direct perception of any circumstance or subject or being directly creates the response with which you will have in the future to them. So if you imagine your neighbor to be a terrible person who is constantly doing things to create havoc in your life, this is the simulation you will wake up to next morning. The moment you release that belief or that thought, you will start to notice in the stimulation, but yes, in reality as well, that actually this guy is not so bad. He is a little bit generous with allowing me more space for my parking. And now, oh wow, look, he has bought a lovely new set of flowers to plant in the yard that I can enjoy as well. And as you go through your simulation, deciding that this being is no longer that selfish character that you had painted them as, and now are one of your friends, well, now you are playing golf with them. And now you are joining them at their son's wedding. It is all up to you, this particular simulation. And yes, on a higher level, you are living within the simulation that has been created by you for the experience of being able to create your own simulation.
Your answer connect me with the next topic, that is multiverse. I would like to make a statement, and please let me know if it's right or wrong, this statement. All potentials exist simultaneously.
We have not understood the question.
I think, do you hear me now, correct? Sorry?
We have not heard the question.
Okay, the question is, can you go deep in the topic of multiverses?
Yes, it is the same sort of concept in that you have your direct simulation. This goes all the way up, so to speak. There is no up, there is no down, but it goes, if you would like to understand and conceptualize, it goes all the way up to the all that is. As the all that is must include all that is, this, from this space, then has the same rays of existences that then branch down into every possible reality and existence that could ever be. The concept of multiverse is an attempt to begin to understand that everything that is, or everything that can be is. Yes, you have your own individuated perspective, which is why, by the way, your own individuated perspective is so unbelievably precious. Because for it to exist, for you as your consciousness to have chosen to be you in this exact version, in this exact simulation, if you would like to say, means that this one was the absolute best of all of them to choose. Now, this, of course, applies to every portion of consciousness, everywhere, on each of all of the spectrums of all of the multiverses. So, while there are infinite versions of you, exactly as you are, who have made slightly different choices, who are now in this simultaneous existence, living each of the outcomes of each of those. And we do insist that it is infinite. And infinity is not a concept that you are easily able to grasp, but it is infinite. There are also yourself and all of the versions that have chosen to be, for example, a merman, which, yes, exist in all of the multiverses, or in a infinite portion, if you can understand that particular statement, of the multiverses. You are a merman who lives under the sea. And in an infinite portion of all of the multiverses, you are and we use this analogy, of an apple or a rock. And in an infinite portion of all of the multiverses, you are a particle of dust that is floating in outer space for all of eternity. So everything that is, everything that can be is, everything that isness is. And we become redundant in the way that we are expressing this, because, of course, if we were to say the word is an infinite number of times, it would still not express this concept to its infinity.
Thank you so much. The next two questions are connected.
Yes?
One is, what do babies think?
What do who think?
What do babies think?
Babies are connected in a way that you are not to the non-physical. Therefore, they are experiencing their beginning of existence much in the same way that you experience your intuition, that you experience your hunches, that you experience your emotions and sentiments. They are not yet 100% connected to their physical being. So they are often in a state of the similar nature that you would be, for example, if you were driving your car down a route that you drove every day, or when you are in meditation. They experience reality at a state of being very connected with their non-physical self. They do, in this non-physical nature, have awareness of themselves, but in their non-physical. And as they progress from being born, or even before, towards the ages of 2 or 3, and when their language centers come online and they begin to be able to communicate directly their needs and wants from a human perspective, they begin to adopt what is called memory. You know very well that memory itself does not develop completely until far after what you call childhood. In this ability to not hold on to memory, they have the ability to stay connected more so with their non-physical selves. As they learn the skill of memory, which, yes, is absolutely necessary for your functioning in what you have created to be a timeline, they do not lose, but turn off some of the abilities of connecting with their non-physical self, and therefore take on in their brain functioning the possibility to retain information that could be serving them in this physical plane. But beforehand, when you see your child spaced out, or in imagination, or staring at a corner, it is very likely that they are seeing something that is still connected to the non-physical realm. If you ask children that are perhaps under the age of 2 or 3, what their sibling who is an arrival will be like, they will have a very accurate account for you, whether it be gender or the personality of that sibling, because they already are in contact still with that non-physical version of the new child that is coming through to them. This is why there are some very deep connections between young children and if their sibling arrives at a rate of only a few years between, because they are still non-physical while they are in this physical plane. And we hope that this has answered the question as much as can be. Please remember that your infants are learning how to be physical, and what you are proposing to them in those formative years will stick. So before the age of 18 months, we would encourage you not to teach your children fear.
Okay. I get that. I get that. The next question is connected with the first one, is what is the time for a baby?
Time for a baby is the same as time for non-physical beings in that it is not necessarily relevant. The only time a baby understands what time is or linearity is when they have a physical need. Therefore, when they have discomfort, yes, from perhaps a dirty diaper, or they have discomfort from hunger, or they have a need for physical affection or connection with other humans. These physical needs arise and suddenly they are popped into their physical. And they then, yes, of course, cry in order to inform you that this has occurred. It is extremely uncomfortable for humans to be physical when they are first born. This is why there is so much need for that comfort from the older versions, the adults around them. Because if you can perceive of how uncomfortable it is for you as an adult on a daily basis to exist, your needs for hunger, your needs to empty your bladders and bowels, your needs for perfect temperature, your needs for connection, your needs, all of your needs cause you regular discomfort throughout your day, and you are constantly in a cycle of meeting your physical needs, then can you imagine a being who has been non-physical up until that point suddenly having themselves being popped in and out of a physical body that is in discomfort, or what they perceive of as discomfort, on a regular basis? It is the role of the caretakers to assure them that this discomfort is normal, that discomfort is acceptable, and that it is not a problem for them if their needs are met. Of course, there is also the challenge of meeting the needs of your infants. So time is irrelevant for young children. In fact, the perception of time is very much related to your ability later on in life to develop your memory centers. But please remember also that children often are in their state of imagination. So in that state of imagination, there is a separate or simultaneous timeline created.
Okay, awesome. How can educate a child to master his mind?
The mind does not need mastery, it needs comprehension, in that your mind is a perfect computer. It is for you to use in the ways that you so see fit. When you are able to understand that this computer runs its programs and that it is up to you, or it is in your power to modify and change the programs, being the programmer yourself, you do not need to master the mind in the same way you do not feel that you need to master your computer. Yes, you need to learn how it works. Yes, you need to learn which buttons to push in order to have the results that you would like to have. At times, you need to figure out how to get rid of the programs that you do not want, have them uninstalled. You may need help from others to do so, but you do not feel the need to stop your computer from doing something, in that you know that it is a tool that is there for you to help you to do the things that you would want to do. Yes, there are people who have trouble managing their computers as well. We agree that this is the case. There are people who, for example, get addicted to gaming or to interaction on the computer that perhaps does not serve them. In this case, it is also the case to reprogram the computer, perhaps to uninstall that game or to take a distance from that, for example, social media site that is absorbing all of one's time. But the mind is exactly the same. It is your most useful tool in terms of creation, in that once you program it to do what you want it to do, you may allow it to run freely, having faith that it will make the right choices for you. So some programs that we would suggest to install would be the program to sift and sort in the computer itself, in the mind itself, as to whether or not the other programs are serving. If you can install this program, then you are able, with that program running, to recognize when another program can be installed from the system. A second program that you may want to install is one that tells you that no matter what you want to learn, you have the capability of doing so. We have seen many beings believe themselves to be limited because they do not believe themselves to have the power to learn whatever it is that they would like to learn. This is a program that does not serve you. Therefore, install the program that if you would like to learn something and master something, you do have the ability to do so. Another program that you may want to install is the program of life is always working out for me. This life is here for me. If you are running this program by default, you will see the world as your ally. You will see all of the people that you meet as your ally, and you will see all of your challenges as your ally. These could be a good place to start programming the mind so that the mind naturally does not run programs that you do not want to follow. And this is the advice that we would give to anyone who is sharing with a child, to install in their mind the knowing that whatever they want to learn, they can. That life is always, no matter what it looks like, working out for them, and that they have the ability to choose what to do with their thoughts.
Thank you so much.
We thank you.
And the last question is, what is your opinion about us, humans?
Oh, we love you so much.
Oh, thank
in
you.
that we are you. And consciousness existence is all that is. The only reason why we exist, even in this format, being able to be called through in language for you to enjoy or for you to learn more about yourselves with, is because you yourselves have called us through into this format. Therefore, without you and without our gratitude for you, we would not exist in this way. And this game that we get to experience with you and get to appreciate with you and get to share and co-create with you would not be possible. Therefore, we have great esteem for humans. We are enthralled by your ability to create, by your curiosity, and by your courage and willingness to come into this existence with the perceptions that you have, or that you have been given, that there is suffering, and the willingness to unpack that belief in order to, yes, ascend from it. So we are in awe, we are in honor, we are in grace, and we are ever in love with humanity, with you, and with our ability to be here with you on your journey. With that, we would leave you, and we do leave you, with the light and the love of 1,000 suns. Anainai.
Thank you so much. Bravo.
Hi there.
Thank you, Jessie. How you feel now? You feel okay? I mean, more energized?
I feel
aging?
really, really good and energized. And also that particular session, I don't remember the questions in trance. I don't remember anything, but I felt so good. And I'm even going to ask you if I can get a copy of that, because I feel like that was so mind blowing for so many topics that you covered. Wow.
Yeah, I try to do my best,
Yeah, that was
because
beautiful.
I'm really, that is my passion in life. You understand that.
Yes.
That's time of information, it's my path.
That's
so,
beautiful.
of course, yes, I'm going to pass you some copy of the
Wonderful.
interview. Two questions before we wrap up.
Yes.
The last one was, as usual, to all the guests, is, do you have any dream you want to come true? Personal dream, not
Personal
your personal
dream.
dream. Yeah.
Personal dream. Let's see. I suppose my deepest desire is to, and a lot of this has been fulfilled already, but my deepest desire is to get to a point, and I think this is the dream of many people, where I'm enjoying life consistently.
Okay.
No matter what, and no matter in what way, and able to go through my day with humor, with fun, with joy, and not really get wrapped up in the stories. I really, on a personal level, want to have like an adventurous and beautiful life. I think that's all really anyone can want, but in my case, that's really one of the main things. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. And the last one. Have you done something for another person that has changed their life? I mean, no family, no friends.
Well, I've been told I have.
Okay.
In terms of like the channeling work, I know that that's impacted people quite significantly. And when I do get that kind of feedback, it really is what motivates me to keep going. There's nothing that feels better than someone telling you that their life has improved because of something that you've done that you would have done anyway. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, this is my calling. I do this whether someone's listening or not, whether it impacts someone or not. And when it does come back that you doing what was true to you has improved someone else, and then therefore they've gone and improved other people, and they've gone and improved other people, that to me is a life well lived. Right? Because you've added and improved this world as opposed to sort of just taken from it. And that's just beautiful. Yeah. That's
all. Thank you so much, Jessie. I really appreciate you being here and your help and your wisdom, and obviously Vagrein as well. And maybe some final words, something you want to comment or just...
Sure. So, I would just have all your listeners, your viewers, see if they could lean more into themselves, because I've really discovered through my experience and my journey and through the people I've worked with and been assistants to, that the more we're able to accept ourselves as we are, the more of what we're not naturally falls off of us. And as you begin to love yourself and lean into, hey, I'm me, the same way you did when you were a child, right? Because we all came from that sort of knowing like, hey, I'm me, I'm perfect, this is how I am. The more you then up level yourself, and then you can be more in service to others, you can be more in service to yourself, to the people around you, even to, the people you meet walking down the street. And you know what? The main reason to do it, forget about everybody else, is because it feels really good. So if you want to feel good, that's the direction to head in. Learn to love yourself.
Okay. Hear that, all the audience? I will leave all the information in the box below, your web page, Instagram link, all your information. Again, thank you so much. Well, maybe see you the next time. Just remember, this is your house. So feel free. Come back again whenever you want.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Jessie. Thank you.